Good morning, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Read Me Live. I am your host, Sharifa Hardy, and we have an incredible show for you today. Our special guest is Ellen Busch, and we're going to talk about empowerment, advocacy, and the power of voice. Good morning, Ellen. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you for having me on as a guest.
Absolutely. I'm interested in learning more about you, who you are, and what you do.
Thanks.
Tell us about yourself, Ellen.
Sure. So I'm an author, published
Okay.
author, coach. This is my book, Disempowered, but the DIS is crossed out.
Okay.
And coach, author, speaker, and of course, an author, like I said. So my story is all about moving from starting out disempowered to becoming empowered.
Okay. And was there a particular reason why you felt the need to go from starting off disempowered to becoming empowered?
Sure. So when I was around 6 or 7 years old, I was diagnosed as dyslexic.
Mhm.
And I lived in Westchester County, just outside of New York City.
Okay.
So pretty affluent community. And despite that, and an excellent school system, I was written off.
Mhm.
The belief system at that time was that, dyslexia was an intellectual disability, and nothing could be farther from the truth. We just learn a little bit differently. But unfortunately, that bias was so strong. I was literally written off by the school system. And my parents said no. And they abdicated for me, and they fought for me. They were involved in every aspect of my schooling. And the short answer is, a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and now I'm a published author. So clearly
Wow.
they tried to write off the wrong child.
The wrong child, Ellen. That is amazing. But I want to go back to your early years, right?
Sure.
And correct me if I'm wrong. Dyslexia is one of those things that people don't necessarily always catch early on. Sometimes they
Right.
think you have learning issues or other challenges. Or sometimes people put it down to behavioral issues where you don't
Absolutely.
want to do the work. How did you get to the diagnosis?
And you're 100% right. And it really depends on where somebody lives, even
Okay.
today, because different states have different education policies.
Okay.
In my case, because my school was so proactive
Mhm.
and forward leaning, or at least they believed that, I was actually originally diagnosed as ambidextrous,
Oh, wow.
which is interesting in itself.
Right.
And the theory at that time was that if you didn't have a dominant eye, and
Mhm.
most children develop a dominant eye very early,
Okay.
and if you don't have a dominant eye, you're not able to track words across a page. Now, that belief, to best of my knowledge, has been completely debunked.
Okay.
So they actually held me back until the end of second grade to begin to teach me to learn to read, because they didn't believe that my brain was ready, or my
Okay.
eye. So we had that piece of it happening first.
Mhm.
And then they said, okay, let's do further testing. So they actually did the WIS test, which I don't know if you're familiar with. It's
I
Wishler. I forget exactly what it stands for.
I am not.
It's an intelligence test, and
Okay.
it measures different types of intelligence. So
Okay.
it'll measure things like logic, abstract reasoning, general IQ, math skills, reading skills, problem solving skills, things like that. Now, I'm over 50. So when I went through the school system, we're talking about the 70s.
Okay.
So I'm sure that the test has new iterations, or there are new versions of it,
Mhm.
just with a function of time and, understanding, of human intelligence. And I scored in the 98th percentile for logic, in the 99th percentile for abstract reasoning. but my math skills were low, and they hadn't started to learn how to read. So I had no reading skills at that point. So there was a lot of self-fulfilling prophecy going on there. They believed XYZ, that I was incapable, and they didn't acknowledge the logic and the abstract reasoning skills.
Okay.
And it was a really very strange perspective, to when I look back on it, I'm just like, wait, what? And there was a parent-teacher conference that my parents told me about when I was an adult. And it was a very condescending parent-teacher conference. And my parents were told I would never be academically successful. They should focus on finding a husband who would take care of me, because I wasn't really going to be contributing to society other than as a wife and a mother. So when I say I was written off, I was really written off.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
by today's standards. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just saying that's horrible to just tell someone that they don't have the ability to do anything else besides being a wife and a mother.
Yeah, that's pretty
especially
awful.
At a young age.
Yeah, I was 6 years old and written off, 6 or 7. Wow. And my parents just said, no, this is ridiculous. At that point, the Americans with Disabilities Act was in place. Okay. And then anybody who is diagnosed as dyslexic, and I hate that word diagnosed, but it is the appropriate word, falls under those protections.
Okay.
So there are legal protections, and the school must provide reasonable accommodations and services for that student. And that's that's federal law. So my parents just said, we're not going to accept this. That parent-teacher conference ended with my mother pounding her fist on the desk saying, I refuse to allow you to condemn my daughter.
That is so wonderful to have a parent that stood up for you. I mean, so often we just, both parents. I mean, so often, people in general, parents, go along with what we consider the professionals. If a professional says this is what it is, then we have to go along with it and we have to agree. And so that also, to me, is a prime example of the power of voice and questioning authority.
Absolutely. Now I have to give you a little picture of who my mom was. She was about 5'3", soaking wet, 100 pounds, maybe 110 pounds, Irish Catholic girl from Brooklyn.
Oh, wow. She's not putting up with any mess.
She was not going to take that. And then my dad was an Army veteran, so he wasn't pretty. Yeah, you kind of can get the picture there.
Yes.
But they really abdicated and fought for me and did everything they could for me. But the reality is that they were up against an entire education system that believed that I would never be academically successful. And I was traumatized by that. Oh, wow. You mentioned, we see behavioral issues, and sometimes these kids who are dyslexic, just, it appears that they don't want to work.
Right.
But what's really going on there, and this is based on my experience, and I coach parents who have children who are dyslexic to help them to understand what is going on with their child. Your frustration level gets so intense that a lot of times you just shut down. Right. Because it almost becomes a self-protection issue. And I've talked to other parents who've experienced this with their children. And behavioral issues just come out of pure, maddening frustration. Right. Because we are talented, we are capable. And the science is really starting to shift to that. As a matter of fact, British intelligence services specifically recruits people who are documented. I'm not using the word diagnosed, but documented as dyslexic, because we have a whole set of talents that most people don't have. Okay. Specifically seeing patterns and gist that most people miss. And that's very valuable in that kind of service. So, and that's just one example. Right. But it is absolutely traumatizing. And the classroom to me was a dangerous, hostile environment. And I had to face it every day
Oh, wow.
as a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old. I mean, it was awful. And, your self-esteem and your self-worth is destroyed because, there were some good teachers, but most of the teachers and most of the administrators just looked down on me. And you know what? Children get that message.
Right.
We get that message. We know how people feel and perceive us.
Right.
It was awful. And of course, I carried that into adulthood.
Right. Before we go into adulthood,
Sure.
I can imagine that it was awful at school. There may have been some bullying. But what was it like when you got home? I mean, I know your parents defended you in the parent-teacher conference,
Sure.
but did your parents reinforce for you that you are intelligent, that you can do all these different things? Do you believe that? I mean, because we can always look at and focus on the negative. We can focus on the people who just are horrible people and bully other people in the school and where the school failed. But what was it like at home for you?
Sure. And yes, there to just about everything you said. So there was bullying that went on for a couple of years, and it was god
That's
awful.
horrible.
And I have done years of trauma therapy to deal with that. And I highly recommend anybody who has that in their life to work with a credentialed trauma expert.
Okay.
But at home, in the evenings, often I would come home and just burst into tears.
Oh.
Yeah, and just run into my mother's arms and just be completely, just frustrated and bullied and angry and upset. And why is this so hard for me? See, one of the things that happens with children who are dyslexic is we are smart and we can perceive what other people think of us. And we can also perceive all and take in all the information. But when we have to read about it and write about it, that's where the frustration and the disconnect comes in. So we understand that the classroom doesn't fit us. It doesn't work for us. When you're trying to cope with that as a child, it's incredibly difficult. But I'd like to say that my dad was my cheerleader. He and I had mantras. And he used to say, "Prove him wrong, Ellen, prove him wrong. You can do it." So he was always encouraging me. We also, my mom would sit and do homework with me. And I would get incredibly frustrated, throw my paper and pencil across the room. And then she would get me some water and help me to calm down. And then we would kind of, just sit and work through it. But it was almost like I needed that emotional release.
Right.
We're not talking about an adult here. I was a child. I was under 10. So there were some behavioral issues, but my parents understood where it was coming from. My dad used to say also, "Ellen, one question at a time. Just one question at a time. That's all you have to do." In the military training, they call this micro goals. So you just get through one thing at a time. And that's what he was teaching me. He also taught me everything that he knew. He understood that the real learning and learning to persevere happens outside the classroom.
That it does.
It really does. And so as a little girl, we had a summer home on Fire Island, and my dad was an avid fisherman. And he taught me how to navigate, how to read nautical charts, how to pilot his boat. I used to have to stand on an upside down bucket so I could reach the steering wheel and see the bow of the boat.
Wow. So you learned more about life and about life experiences. Now, were you an only child?
No, I have a younger sister. She fortunately didn't have to deal with any of this. So things were a little bit easier for her. But and then at 15, my dad sent me on Outward Bound.
Okay.
At 17, he sent me to get certified to scuba dive. And please understand, these were things that I wanted to do.
Right.
They were not like, you have to go. It was, I get to go? Really? Yep. you get to go down Outward Bound. You pick your trip.
Oh, I mean, that just shows the importance of family. You know, the importance of, like you said, having cheerleaders, people in your corner, people who see the truth of the situation when you don't. You know, one of the things I talk about even when doing my readings is people read different ways. I personally don't read reversals. I make sure all of the cards are upright. And the reason I do that is because I want to always see, no matter what the situation is, the highest good, the most positive outcome. You know, it's not that life isn't real and things don't happen, but if you can see that for somebody else, then they can see it for themselves. So I love the fact how especially like you were saying, your dad was your cheerleader. Sometimes people don't understand that, okay, maybe you are challenged in this area, meaning reading, right? But there are other things that life teaches you. So at what point did you wind up changing schools, or at what point did things become easier for you, if ever?
Yeah, it did become easier. So I stayed within the same school system. And then, as children mature, the learning and the lessons that we get changes. So,
Right.
a lot of it is, when you're really young, it's learning your times tables and your spelling words and things like that. And I have no short-term memory. That's
Okay.
just how I'm built. Now, the trade-off, and it really is a trade-off, is I have an excellent long-term memory.
Mm.
So when something gets into my long-term memory, it's like I have a database in my
Okay.
head. So I'm also a very visual thinker, which is very common. And I think this is my personal theory, but I think this is part of the disconnect. So we're born as visual thinkers. We think in pictures or in images. And when we have to learn language, we have to translate our
Right.
visual images into language. And actually, one of the most famous people who was dyslexic is Albert Einstein.
Oh, wow. I had no idea.
And yeah. So nobody questions his intelligence, right?
Not at all. We know he's intelligent.
Exactly. So, and he was also a late talker. So
Okay.
again, this is just a theory of mine. I don't have any, anything to back that up, but this is my experience. It's
Okay.
where it comes from. So there's that piece of it. And then, as we mature at age, it becomes more about concepts and problem solving. And so it did get easier for me. And when I went to college, it became even easier because, you're having discussions, you're debating, you're doing, you're speaking, you're working in teams. And
Right.
those things came very natural to me.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just beautiful that I always believe that, well, it's not even a belief. I know that everybody has some sort of challenge. And when I speak to, I launched my first podcast in 2009. I've interviewed thousands of people, and most of them will tell you that their growth came from the challenges. Like, for instance, I'm a business owner, an entrepreneur. I love learning. I love speaking with people, but I really loved being an employee. That was what I thought I would always do. But then 8 layoffs later, I wound up on an entrepreneurial journey. So had it not been for those experiences, I think I'd probably still be working for some company. Had it not been for the challenges, you're working with people and helping people to find the power of their voice. So let's talk a little bit about your work and what you currently do.
Sure. Well, to give you a little bit more background of why I got here into the
Okay.
coaching training area is because that low self-esteem led me straight into a marriage to a narcissist.
Oh, wow.
And
I
I
mean, I can
suffered.
imagine.
Yeah, it was awful.
Mhm.
And 6 years of psychological abuse, I finally extricated myself from
Mhm.
there.
Mhm.
And I had to plan and execute an escape, and that's real. And that
Mhm.
was terrifying. We did have an incident of violence. I talked to an attorney
Mhm.
who advised me to leave unannounced.
Mm-hmm.
And she really woke me up to help me understand how much danger I was in.
Oh, wow.
Um,
I want to talk about that, but I want to
sure.
getting in the situation and getting in this marriage. Where was dad? Did dad spot the narcissist? I mean, dads usually are kind of good at like, okay, Ellen, I don't know if this one is the one.
Right. Nobody spotted it. He
Okay.
was really an Academy Award winning actor.
Okay.
He really, really covered it up. Now, when I got out, when I escaped, my dad was there for me and my parents took me
That's a
in.
blessing.
And so that was super helpful. But to be honest, I actually hid the violent incident from my father
Oh, wow.
because I knew what he would have done.
Right. I can
And
imagine that
yeah,
that's his baby girl.
exactly. Not a good place to be. So I just didn't want to see anything happen that would have had a really bad result.
Right.
I just wanted him out of my life, and that was all I needed. And so yeah, that was pretty rough, and it was an extra burden on me, but it was my choice.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I want to point out, and this is a government statistic, is that 70% of the women who are murdered in this country, from intimate partner abuse, and there's 3 women and 1 man every day in this country. 70% of the time that happens the day they try and leave.
Mm.
Which is why the attorney who I talked to advised me to escape quietly and not announce it.
Right.
So I am very grateful for her
Yes.
advice. And that's what I did.
Yes. One of my favorite movies, I love movies. I'm a huge movie buff, is Sleeping with the Enemy.
Oh, yes.
You know, how she
Mm-hmm.
had this elaborate plan to
Mm-hmm.
get away so that he
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't even know that she was still alive.
Right.
People have to do whatever it is for their own safety, for their own peace of mind. And
Yeah.
like you said, announcing it often puts them in more danger. Wow, I'm
Yes.
sorry that you had to go through that. That is horrible. I mean, it really is. You've had some challenges, but I
Mm-hmm.
always love when people take those challenges and use them to be able to help and be able to assist other people, because you learn empathy, and you not only learn empathy, but you learn experiences through life. And so now, who are some of the people that you work with, or types of people?
Sure. I work with a lot of women,
Hmm.
um, a trauma informed
Hmm.
coach. And like I mentioned, I do work with parents who have dyslexic children,
Okay.
to help them to understand the trauma and the support. Um, and I work with pretty much, I've also been doing some work with folks on the dating side of things because everything is such a mess right now with the dating apps.
Yes,
So,
tell me about it. So, okay, how do you help? Because I need to get some help. So, what do you help them with?
sure. So, it depends on the personality.
Okay.
One of my first questions is, are you an introvert or are you an extrovert? Because that makes a big difference as to your path,
Okay.
and getting out there and, because for an introvert, it can be really difficult
Right.
to go to an event, and
Mhm.
I encourage getting out there and doing any kind of in-person meetup,
Right.
finding sports and communities and growing your community.
Mhm.
And again, an introvert, that's a lot harder.
Right.
So I happen to be an extrovert, surprise, surprise. uh, but we come up with plans. I think meetup groups, there are some great ones out there. We have some fantastic ones here in Colorado that I've been a part of. I have 2 meetup groups that I'm part of that are business networking groups. They're not for dating per se, but that's
Right.
about getting in front of people. That's about introducing yourself. It's about having a conversation saying, hi, my name is Ellen, and this is what I do. And the
Right.
more practice somebody can do, and it's less pressure in a networking environment because it's
Right.
not a dating environment. You just
Right.
get practice and you get out there and you learn how to stand on your feet and just get
Mhm.
comfortable with it. But I think, moving away from the dating apps, I think is super helpful. I mean,
Right.
still being on them, I think is fine, but to rely on only that, I
Mhm.
think isn't going to create the success that people want.
Right.
Um, I also work a lot with women who, you know, I'd say 35 to 65, who just want to create a fitness program for themselves.
Okay.
And they may not feel comfortable going to the gym. You know what?
Right.
If you're local, I'm going to go to the gym with you. Would you like a gym buddy?
Oh, well, that's nice. But I want to go back to what you were talking about with dating because that's confirmation for me. I've had the last couple of people who wanted to talk about dating and giving that, I was giving dating advice. I said the same exact thing: meet up, meet up, meet up, meet up. Because, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, it takes off the pressure. But in addition to taking off the pressure, is you have things in common. You have things that you enjoy, and you get to
Mm-hmm.
meet people and you get to know people and what they like. So if you're going, and I said the same thing as far as business meetups, because if you're looking for or you want a certain type of guy, in my opinion, you know, they're out there networking, they're out there focused on business. And I
Right.
used to be on the dating sites. I originally got on the dating sites. I'm not on anymore, but way back in 2008. And I went even on the dating sites with the mindset of getting out the house and having fun. And some of the guys that I met in 2008 are still really great friends to this day. So I think so often we get, especially as women, we can be closed minded and say, well, I'm just looking for Mr. Right, or I'm looking for my husband. Okay, well, go out,
Right.
have some fun, meet new
Right.
people. Because as I told one lady, I said, you never know, even if you go to, a women's group, if that's what you're into, some woman there might be like, you know what, you'd be perfect for my brother. You know what I mean? But you
Exactly.
just meet people. And it was
Mm-hmm.
interesting what you said about like I always tell people, I'm more of an introverted extrovert. I don't even know if that's a thing, but most people assume because I do a lot of
Like a
events and I do
no.
a lot of speaking and I do podcasts that I'm an extrovert. It's like I
Right.
come up, like I bring my energy up. I do the show. It's a performance. And then after that, it's like, okay, let me go read this book. Let me close off from the world. And I can be very introverted.
Right. And I agree with you 100%. It's about getting out there in the communities,
Mhm.
and excuse me. Um, we've had very, very dry weather, and we're actually had very high fire risk. And so everybody's allergies are crazy because everything's blowing around.
Right.
Um, so I apologize for the frog in my throat.
No, you're
Um,
you're fine. I'm enjoying the conversation.
thank you.
It's great. It's wonderful. I love when I can speak to people about just different topics. And I love the idea of the power of voice and finding your voice, because one of the
Exactly.
things that I talk about is I'm actually 49, so I'll be 50 in March, but the
Okay.
change in generations. And so when I was growing up, it was that whole, and prior to me, it was that whole message of children are to be seen and not heard.
Right.
And I always felt that when you take away a child's voice, especially a female
Mhm.
child's voice, you take away their ability to say no. You take away their ability to really say what's on their mind. And that goes, if they learn that as a child, they go into adulthood. And I love
Absolutely.
how you crossed out the and disempowered, because so
Mhm.
often I think people don't even realize, and I love to hear your take on this, that they are not using their voice.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. And it's so interesting because I had no idea I was carrying around this self esteem and this belief system about myself. That
Mhm,
label of dyslexia, I believed I was broken. I was
mhm,
brain damaged. I really believed that. And
mhm,
that destroyed my self esteem. But also when you start to combine that with the dating conversation, I've noticed that, or I should say, in my experience, men are really good at picking up on self-confidence and body language.
Right.
And when you are a strong, independent woman and your confidence and you have your voice
Mm-hmm.
and you're sure in that, that makes you very, very attractive.
Oh, wow.
It really, I have noticed that such a big difference. And I see it in other women who I know who are just so focused on wanting to be in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
They're not focused on themselves.
Right.
The stronger and the more independent I am, the more men I seem to attract. It's really been interesting. And it's a different type of man, too. A man
Right.
who appreciates a woman who can stand on her in her own shoes and not
Yes.
apologize for who she is.
Oh, that
That
is
is
beautiful.
confidence is the new sexy.
I always say the same thing. The sexiest thing about a person is confidence. If a person is confident, and that's why even when people say, oh, well, there's 13 men, or excuse me, 13 women for every man, I'm like, yeah, but if I walk into a room, that man is
Mhm.
going to say, who is she? It's
Exactly.
just something about the energy, something about the confidence, something about the aura. But I think
Mhm.
it's my belief. I told my kids, growing up about self-fulfilling prophecies. And I love how you said that. And I truly believe so often, this is what we created. So I'm creating the self-fulfilling prophecy that he's going to say, who is she? And I've
Exactly.
never, ever had a problem with finding a man. So that is just interesting. And then you published the book.
I did. I
Yes.
did.
What motivated you to publish the book?
It's really the hero's journey. I don't know if you're familiar with that concept from Joseph Campbell. Um, he was a professor at Sarah Lawrence College, and he coined the phrase the hero's journey, or I should say they call it the monolith.
Okay.
And it's actually, he consulted with Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, and it is actually the theme in Star Wars.
Okay.
So I think everybody has probably seen Star Wars. So, of
Yes.
course, we have our hero, which is Luke Skywalker.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the very typical cycle of the hero's journey. And it's very well laid out in the movie, hence why they consulted Joseph Campbell. So we have Luke, and he faces this challenge to save Princess Leia. And at first he refuses the challenge, and then he takes on the challenge.
Mm.
And then he goes through the crucible and everything that we see in the movie. And then at the end of the movie, he becomes the hero and he returns to his tribe. And now he is the warrior, and he brings all of that wisdom back and becomes the wise person. And that's the hero's journey is something that Joseph Campbell looked across all different cultures across the planet and saw this common theme.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was all about me completing my hero's journey. I have learned so much. I have so much wisdom to share. And I feel a very strong sense of responsibility to bring that back to my tribe. And in my case, often my tribe is dyslexic children or adults, and also women, and helping women to find their voice and be able to stand in who they are with confidence and never feel the need to apologize for that.
Oh, that is so beautiful. And I love the hero's journey because Tarot, I'm not sure how familiar you are with it. Have you had a reading before?
I'm not.
Okay. So Tarot is called the Fool's Journey. And it
Okay.
symbolizes the journey of life and how we start off life as the fool, and then it goes from the fool to the world. So the fool is about taking a leap of faith, whereas the world is about completion. But the reason it's called the fool's journey is because there's an expression that God protects fools and infants. And those are the only two people in the world that don't think they know everything. So
Right.
in life, if you're open and you go through this journey of life, then you learn all of the lessons. And so it's so always, it's one of my things that I just love, and I just enjoy being able to work with people. And like you said, in the hero's journey, taking this information, taking this wisdom back to my tribe, so I'm a third generation reader. My mom told me 20 years ago, she was like, Sharifa, you can do this, you can read for people. And I was like, I'm not reading for people. And I was 29, so I had to mature. I had to get more experience, more wisdom, live a little bit more. And now I'm like, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to be able, like you said, bring that wisdom back to everyone else and the lessons, that I've learned. So what we're going to do is we're going to get started on your reading. I've been sitting here as we had this conversation shuffling.
Okay. Oh, I'm excited.
Shuffling for me is always, it does three things. It's my sign to spirit that I'm going to do a reading. It's also my way of clearing the energy from any past reading. And it's also a way for me to kind of concentrate and focus on you and tune into you while you're talking. So that's what I've been doing. So when I do a reading, the first card is always your main issue. And that's the main thing that's running through your life right now. The main lesson that for you to learn. And Ellen, that is the 10 of Wands.
Okay.
10 of Wands. And so
what does that mean?
The 10 is completion. So it's what they call a minor arcana card. So arcana means change, right? So you have major arcana and you have minor arcana. Major changes in your life and minor changes in your life. Major changes are your things that change the course of history. Those are your divorces, your marriages, your deaths. Those are things when life will never be the same. Publishing a book, I would consider it a major life change. I'm getting ready to release my 5th book, and being a published author gives you a lot of credibility. It opens doors for you because that's who you are. Minor arcana cards are things that affect you today, things that affect your short term, whereas in the long term, big picture is not really going to do much, right? So wands are action. Wands are movement. 10 of Wands means completion as far as this path, this journey. Wands is usually creativity. It's also career, right? So this tells me whatever you've been focusing on, even with the book, it's coming to a level of completion. And so in numerology, a 10 becomes a 1 because 1 plus 0 is 1. So anytime you complete or anytime you end any cycle, then you have to start a new journey. So 10 of Wands is always about burdens. It's about carrying more than you really have to. It can be carrying other people. It could also be just being tired of the journey. You know what I mean? You've had a hectic life, you know what I mean? You've been pushing, you've been going, you've been working, you've been releasing, you've been helping. And so this really says that you may be overburdened. And it's so funny because for different cards, I always have little things in life. And for me, when my kids were at home, whenever I received the 10 of Wands, I made them do something. Because I'm a very nurturing person. So I would do the cooking and I would do the cleaning and I would wash the dishes. I would do the vacuuming. And then the 10 of Wands says, you're doing everything for everybody. And I'm like, okay, I need somebody else to help me carry this weight, because the challenge is the 2 of Swords, right?
Okay.
So 2 is a minor arcana card, and swords means thought. It means intellect. It means things that are going on in your mind, or it means information. So the 2 of Swords, 2s on a scale of 1 to 10, 2 is always like the beginnings. It's the start of this next journey. But in order to move forward in that journey, it requires a decision. So the 2 of Swords is about making decisions. But again, these are minor arcana cards, minor changes. This means that you most likely are going to stay on the current path. So far, I haven't seen any huge shifts, but you want to make some decisions as far as how you want to move forward and how you want to distribute the weight. Okay.
Yeah.
Because the next card that you have is Temperance.
Okay.
Temperance. And temperance is a major arcana card, major life changes. And so temperance is about balance. But I always consider whenever I see temperance, that's my alchemy card, the alchemist. And so the alchemist knows how to create. The alchemist knows what to add, what to pour, what to put in it. I always think of not only the alchemist, but a really good chef. A really great chef, they haven't touched that recipe in 30 years, right? They just know how to make it. They know how to put a little bit of this, a little bit of that, cook it up, feed the family. That's what temperance is about. It's about the yin and the yang. Again, this is about balance, right? So especially with being overburdened, it tells me that at some point, everything has to be balanced. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly accurate.
Thank you. The next card that you have is the Three of Swords.
Okay.
So, minor arcana card, swords or thoughts. So the Three of Swords symbolizes sorrow. It symbolizes some type of loss. So there has been some type of loss, some type of pain, some type of hurt. But the beautiful aspect of sorrow is that it is over, that everything is out in the open, that there's nothing hidden, that this is no longer going to continue, that this situation has ended. So there may have been, some endings or people that you had to let go of, but it's over now, because the next card that you have is the Hierophant.
Okay.
And the Hierophant is a major arcana card, and it's a major life lesson. And so the Hierophant always talks about spiritual truths or your belief systems, what you believe to be true, what you see. This usually occurs when people go into a new direction. Again, we're showing an end of a cycle, beginning of a cycle. So the Hierophant talks about what is true for you. And I always use the example of someone who was raised in a certain religion. This doesn't only have to be about religion, but it's the clearest example is that, maybe your parents were Buddhist, and then you like, what, I think I'm gonna be Catholic. Right? This is not about what is true for other people, what is true for your community, what's true for your family, spouse. This is about what is true for Ellen. Really fine tune it. And again, that's a major life lesson, is determining what is true for you, because the next card that you have is the Ten of Pentacles.
Okay.
And the Ten of Pentacles, you have two tens, which is, again, completion, that whatever cycles you were in before, those cycles are coming to an end, and you're stepping out new beginnings, going in a new direction. And the Ten of Pentacles is always my legacy card, right? It's about generational wealth, because in the Nine of Pentacles, she has enough. She has enough for her. She's successful. But the Ten of Pentacles is about having more than enough for other people, more than enough to pass on to future generations. In this card, they show 10 coins, right? 10. But in many cards, they show the husband, the wife, the kids, and the dog. So this is about more than just you. So this wealth, what you're creating is not just about you. It's about other people as well, because the next card that you have is the Nine of Wands.
Okay.
The Nine of Wands. And the Nine of Wands is really beautiful, because cards are not only about that specific card. It's about the cards surrounding it. It's about the cards prior to it, the cards after it. So in the Eight of Wands, she's presented with new opportunities. New opportunities come to her, right? So the Nine of Wands is saying those opportunities have come to you. Now, what do you do with them? So the Nine of Wands is always about creation. It's about being creative. It's about going in a new creative direction. So whatever direction it is saying use your creativity in order to bring this to life. Because the next card that you have is the Death card. And none of the cards are bad at all. There's always a blessing in everything. So the death is a major arcana card. It's a major life lesson. And the major life lesson, I can see that, especially with the Three of Swords, is transformation. It's about going from one phase of your life to another. And so I always think of the death card as my butterfly card, right? Because there's no way to become the butterfly without being the caterpillar. So often we want to skip all those life lessons, what happened to you in school. We just want to get to the happily ever after. We just want to get to the good stuff. No, those moments is what transform you. Those moments is what makes you who you are today. So just know that you're going through a transformation, and then everything is going to come out beautiful on the other side, because the next card that you have is the Lover's card. Is my favorite card, one of my favorite cards, and it's actually on the front of the box that I use, and why I brought this deck to begin with, because I'm a hopeful romantic and I believe in love. And I love how they're seeing each other eye to eye. There's nothing hidden, there's nothing that they don't see. But the Lover's card, the lesson that the Lovers teaches us, is simply about choices. So this doesn't have to be romantic love. It's about making choices, the highest possible choices out of love. Because when we even think about love, we don't make the same choices at 16, on who we love that we do at 25, and then we get to 45. So this is about making mature choices, making mature decisions, right? But it is about love, not only love for self, or excuse me, love for someone else, but love for self and love for spirit. So they all go together. They all go together. And so I always give the first card, which is your main issue, the theme that's running through your life. Then I do 10 cards, and the ones in between are always basically like steps along the way. So the last card, which is the 10th card, is the final outcome. So it's just saying, Sharifa, at the end of the day, you sum all this up. What is it that Ellen needs to know? What is it that you're trying to say? And that card is the Fool, Ellen.
Okay.
It is the fool's journey. Be open like the fool, right?
Oh,
Trust.
okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
trust.
Kind of like the hero's journey.
Yes, exactly. Just trust. Trust. This card is saying trust. And it also shows again that after the death, after all these choices that you make, you have to take a leap of faith, because the fool starts off on his journey, and it's a new journey. So what this tells me is that you are definitely going in a new direction in your life. There are changes, there are doors that are closing. And I always tell people, watch the doors that close and watch the doors that open. The doors that close are the doors you're supposed to stay away from, and the doors that open are the doors you're supposed to walk through, right? So the fool, he's open, he believes, he has faith in creation, faith in himself, and he goes with no guarantees. That's why I like what you were saying about Star Wars, is there's no guarantee, there was no promises that Luke was going to win, but you have to start. There is no way that you cannot begin. And so this is a new beginning, a new direction, but it's beautiful and life is good. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you?
Oh my gosh, yes. I think it's on the money. And, it's so interesting, because one of the things that I'll share with you also that runs in my maternal female line is some mediumship abilities.
Oh, wow.
And very, very strong intuition. And since yesterday, I've had this feeling that something really powerful and really good was going to happen on the 21st. So, but it's interesting, just hearing you comment on the cards. I can see how all of those fit into exactly where I am and the questions I'm asking and decisions that I'm making. And I think it's spot on.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. So with mediumship, did any messages come through for you? Was there any intuition that you felt based on the cards, or you have any questions for me?
Nothing at the moment, just because I've been so focused on listening to you. It may come later, when I do some breath work, and I do breath work and meditation every single day. I think that is mission critical. yeah, it's not at the moment, but that doesn't mean it
Okay.
doesn't come.
No,
One of the things that, oh, go
No,
ahead.
it's beautiful because one of the things that I've learned in doing this show is that people, it takes time to process. So I've
It does.
found that the average time is usually about 2 days after someone has been on the show. I'll get the email or I'll get the call, or you're like, oh my God, I was thinking about what you said and this came
Yep.
to me.
Yep.
And so I think, the 21st, powerful message, and if nothing else, I'll just say take a leap of faith. So I think it's
Yeah.
wonderful. I think it's beautiful. I don't see, I mean, with everything, I just see that this is new, like new journey, new
Yeah,
moving
it
forward.
is.
And I love that. And I think that's beautiful. Now, Ellen, we are coming down to the last few minutes of the show. And what I love to do at the end of every show is just simply allow my guests the opportunity to speak directly to the audience, to everyone who is watching this show live, as well as everyone who is watching it in the archives, and let them know what you want them to take away from your appearance here today.
What I'd like you to take away from today is that healing from an event or surviving from something awful, a divorce, a loss of a loved one, it can even be loss of a job, something that is truly traumatizing. I see so many people who survive something and then they get stuck. And I want you to know that you can move from survivor to thriver. And this is actually going to be the theme of my second book, which I have started working on. And there are many different ways to heal. Try different things. But it is possible to completely reinvent yourself, to recreate your life. And not just your life, but the life that you want. I'm fortunate. I live here in Colorado and I'm a big skier, and this is exactly the life that I wanted. And it took a long time, a lot of hard work, working with coaches, therapists, breath work, acupuncture, Reiki masters, body code work. But I have learned how to do it, and I'm proof that you can do it too. You can move from survivor to thriver, but you're not going to do it alone. It's not meant to be done alone. So don't be afraid to ask for help and build a community of like-minded people around you who will support you.
I think that's beautiful. And where can people find more information about you?
Sure. So my website is ellenbusch.com. And just don't forget the C. So it's Bush like the beer, not like the ex-presidents. A little bit of a family joke there, but everybody gets that. And I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and all the and LinkedIn, of course. I'm easy to find on LinkedIn as well.
I love it. I love it. I want to thank you, Ellen, for being today's guest on Read Me Live and for allowing me to share your experience with the world. I also want to thank everyone who tuned in to watch the show live, as well as everyone who watches in the archives. And I just want to thank you for supporting the show. And if you want to be right where Ellen is and have your own reading or share about you, visit my website at readmelive.com. Until next time, everyone have a safe and a blessed